All right. Well, hello, everyone. This is Elizabeth and Jeff Vaudrey, the owners of Tipple's Brews and Wines, and welcome to this week's virtual wine tasting. This week, we are going to be drinking the Gehricke Pinot Noir from the Sonoma Coast in California. Delicious, cool growth Californian wine. We'll talk a little bit about the different styles you can get out of California. I think this one's a wonderful example of it's kind of the classier, balanced style. That's what I get out of cool growth Californian Pinot Noir. Rated 91 points and 90 points respectively from Wine Spectator and Wine Enthusiast. Thank you for doing that.
Sorry, I messed it up.
No.
I thought you were being sarcastic.
Yeah, no.
Oh, you do want me to share?
Yeah, no, you okay. Rolled right along. It was perfect.
Okay,
so
all right.
I'm always too late in saying that.
There we go.
I should say hello and jump to this. But
okay.
I just love being on camera. I'm a ham. So anyway, like I said, 91 and 90 points respectively. Wine Spectator, Wine Enthusiast. Pretty tight cluster on those ratings. I think we'll discuss in the end what we think it would line up to as well. Great pairings for this guy: salmon, roast chicken, any kind of duck or fowl, venison and ostrich, because Californian Pinot Noir can be a little hardier. And I think you can go as far as ostrich, wild boar, that type of thing. Huh. I think you could even go with barbecue ribs with Cali. Okay. I wouldn't do it if we went for even cooler growth up in Oregon or even in France, but for Californians, yeah, I could see that. Let's go ahead and jump back to us.
Okay.
This is tonight's wine is 100% Pinot Noir and weighs in at a 14.2% alcohol. It's about perfect for what it is. It's really right in the medium range. So, so while we're at it, so if you haven't already, let's pour some and take a look and sniff. Perfect serving temperature on this, guys, between 55 and 60 degrees. That is standard European cellar temperature. I usually achieve this by throwing my red wines in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes before I drink them. They'll come out around 55 to 60 degrees and then slowly warm up to room temperature from there. And they'll give you a little different flavor and aromas as it warms up. But I like to let it start a little bit tight.
I have a question about that.
Yes.
So you always say that. Mm-hmm. But then as it opens up, we're always like, oh, we like it so much more now as it opens up. So why wouldn't you just start off with it being warmer?
It's just, honestly, if you're over there and drinking it in a cooler environment, you're going to run it all the way. Like if you're drinking this in a 55-degree room, you're never really going to go up into that 70-something degrees. So I'm glad people really like it as it warms up, but it's not necessarily, the peak is somewhere in between. So, so that's
so are the Europeans, they're drinking it at colder temperatures always? So they're like, is the winemaker expecting you to be not feeling the evolution of going into the 70s, or?
They realistically are at this point.
Okay.
But tradition, it's more of tradition. When we started at a cellar temperature, it's what they were traditionally making wine for serving. And so I always like to start with that tradition, and because then way we get to explore both sides of it.
Okay.
It is easier to identify certain flavors and aromas later on, but it just is,
okay.
What it is. So, good question. Fair enough question. Not necessarily an easy one to answer.
I was asking these questions and then I'm like, I wonder if he knows the answer to this.
Yeah, right. So, really nice, kind of a spicy red fruits jumping out of the glass here.
Yeah, definitely.
A little bit of, on the earthy side, I would say it's more of like a dried leaves. I wouldn't go with them because Pinot Noir can run on the earthy aspects they can go to a moist earth mushroomy quality if they have earthy aspects. But then my favorite preference is with the cooler growth, you often get more of this, which is to me a dried autumn leaves effect with the earth is coming through. But that is secondary by far. It's, the red cherries, kind of almost a red cherries. They describe rhubarb. I can go with rhubarb on there. A nice spiciness. On the palate, the fruit's even richer. Nice, yeah, really nice. Almost working toward like a raspberry cherry combo on there.
Sure.
The spices, I wouldn't say peppery in this. I would go more baking spices.
Yeah, I was going to say more like nutmeg or something.
Yeah, yeah. You're more like cherry pie, apple pie spice, that kind of thing. Those kind of nice baking spices. Maybe a gingerbread kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
The structure is it's got a nice structure to it. It's a medium-bodied wine. It's Pinot Noir can go all the way to light-bodied, but I'd say this guy's got more weight in my mouth, a little more pushback. So I would go medium-bodied on this guy. The tannins are nearly non-existent.
I just saw Myra's face go, wait, what?
Yeah.
I heard my word.
So extremely modest on the tannins here.
Very low, no tannins. I'm nothing for you.
And we'll actually talk about why that will be when we get into the growing region. Growing region and growing conditions would be responsible for the very small amount of tannins in this wine.
Okay.
So let's see. I'm going to go into this just a bit more before we move on. Some of the flavors, some of the possibilities, though I like to kind of put out some of what is possible. So I think, and you guys can chime in here, I would eliminate, because when you're on certain options for Pinot Noir flavor profiles, it could be a mushroomy wet earth quality. I would eliminate that on this guy.
Yeah.
I would say this one's much more of a dried leaves quality for the earth tones. Red fruit rather than blue fruit, so I'm not getting blueberries. It more the deepest quality I'm getting right now would be more of a raspberry. But I wouldn't go as lean as when we were drinking from New Zealand, which had cranberry. I wouldn't go that lean. It's richer than that. Thought you guys think you agree? You guys with me on that, or you think I'm crazy? Yeah,
I think it's very like peaty, like I think there's like a little bit of smoke to it, and like you said, like some like dry leaves, and like you said, like some like baking spices, like cinnamon, something like that. Yeah, cardamom. But yeah, I definitely think there is like that sort of it's not like it's not like that mushroomy thing, but there is that sort of like yeah,
I agree. There's like bridging over in there when you're going from the fruit, you get the spices, and then you're going spices over to that kind of dried leaves effect. There is an herbiness, which I think is that smoky quality you were describing, Chris. There's a little bit. It's kind of subtle, but there's a bit of an herb that is more of a bit of a savory bridge. It's subtle. It is extremely subtle, but it's there. I'm with you.
Anybody else tasting anything?
It's like wet black dirt to me. Like when you get really good soil and you're going to plant
In
something.
a good way.
In a good way, yeah. Like wet black dirt.
I gotta say, you're getting a little more
Really
of
creepy.
so you're perceiving it more as a richer, darker earth. Okay.
Yeah, which I like a lot.
Good.
I can't really pick out any flavors, but I don't think if I didn't know this was a Pinot Noir, I wouldn't think it was. It seems.
I
much
agree.
bolder.
I feel like it seems heavier than I would not think this was a Pinot if I didn't know it.
Excellent point, and why I wanted to drink this wine. So that is a classic Californian Pinot quality.
Okay.
California Pinots have heavier extraction, so they get more richness from the grape. So you get a heavier, bolder Pinot Noir. So it has those classic Pinot Noir characteristics, but it is richer. It's bigger. It's heavier in the mouth.
It's not as
And it
heavy,
can go with, like I was saying, some bigger meats.
not as heavy as the Pinots get, though,
Not as heavy as which one?
as the Pinots can get.
Oh, sure. No, you're right. You could go in California. There are warm growth Pinots, and a warm growth Pinot would be even fruitier. It would have in those warmer growth ones. you tend not to get any of the kind of terroir coming through. The fruit just takes over.
Huh.
And they tend to try and offset that with very young, aggressive barrel aging techniques. And so in those, which one again, I'm not saying they're bad or wrong, but it would be much more with a vanilla cherry effect.
Okay.
You get a lot of vanilla in those kinds of. It tends to be how they offset the big fruit to give it another quality. What I like about the cool growth California is it gives you this in between where this isn't like France or the Willamette. It is, you're right, much bolder fruit.
Mhm.
It's very friendly, and it can pair with some different foods, a little more hardy foods, but it still does give you some terroir and spice, and you're not drinking a whole bunch of vanilla, which we weren't even discussing vanilla on this. So it tells you something about they're aging this in neutral oak. So neutral
Okay.
oak will give you a spiciness,
Mhm.
but young oak will give you a lot of vanilla. So that's just a winemaking choice, but it also usually is because they can depend on the grapes they're choosing to provide nice character by itself, and they want to not cover up that character with young oak. So let's jump over and talk a little bit about where this guy's from. So let's jump over to some discussion of Sonoma. All right, so here we are with my favorite wine map. So this huge blob is where we went tonight. So here we were last week. We were down in this little dot, and then we jump over here. So so obviously the North Coast of California can make some beautiful, beautiful wines, and it doesn't make just a few of them. It makes a whole ton. So here we have California's major growing regions, Central Coast. The Amazing Cups know that well. They used to live there. Here we are. North Coast is where we're drinking tonight. So the North Coast is going to be here. Sonoma and Napa are going to be up in this area. And San Francisco is right down here, by the way. Oh, well, right there specifically.
Wow, I do not know California geography at all. I thought San Francisco was much farther north than that in the state.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as the Mason Cups laugh at me.
Yeah, right. There's just everything up here is so
Yeah, I thought it
small.
was up
Yeah.
there.
So we jump down here. So here we have a close up. So here we have the Sonoma growing region, and here you can see Napa's down here. So so San Fran is just off the map down here. So we are drinking from the coastal area here. Sonoma actually grows twice as much. Makes twice as much wine is produced in Sonoma every year as Napa.
Why
So
is
it's kind
Napa-
of
I
on the-
feel like Napa's like more well known than
It is.
Sonoma is.
For sure.
Why?
Well, it's the perception
Mhm.
is that they make the best wine in
Okay.
California. I think that is arguable when you really dig into some of these areas. There's some incredible, what we just drank from Paso Robles a couple of weeks ago. Paso Robles makes a ton of wine as well. Sonoma has something in common with Paso Robles. So what was really kind of neat about Paso Robles was they had this tremendous variety of growing conditions.
Mhm.
So you could grow basically every wine in the world, every wine grape in the world can be grown in Paso Robles. Many of them can be grown in Sonoma. So in Sonoma, you've got these areas here where you, well, let's see, we're drinking here. So this is a lot like when we were up in the Willamette, where it's a little warmer, but you're going to have the ocean fog pouring over mountains. So you've got a combination of elevation and fog to cool off the grapes. Then you have the floor, which is going to be warm and sunny. And then it begins to go up in elevation again before you would go over the second ridge of mountains into Napa. So, and here you have kind of a warm, dry, but with elevated. So in Sonoma, you tend to have something like Cab and Zin, and some Petit Syrah and that type of thing here. But the Chardonnay and Pinot are here at the coolest section. So you have this nice range of what you can grow in there. Down here. So here we have a closer one. So here's the Sonoma Coast. So within Sonoma, like Knights Valley, Gehricke, who we're drinking tonight, the Gehricke line is from throughout Sonoma, and they grab the great grapes depending on what they're making. So here we have the Knights Valley, great for Cab. They make a Cab from Knights Valley. So
they have agreements with all the growers.
right, if they are a negotiant. So we're talking about
Okay.
somebody who purchases their grapes and then vince them themselves.
Do they grow any of their own, or is it all?
It's all purchased.
Ah.
It's from a family that actually the brothers that are running it now grew up in Sonoma, 4th generation. So they've been there a long time. They really know who to contact. So so here we go. So their Pinot Noir and their Chardonnay are from the coolest area right here. All right. So in Sonoma, you've got fast draining soils, elevation up to 4,800 feet above sea level. And like I was saying, fog. Look at this wall. This is that wall of fog that's about to come inland there. It looks almost like a mountain range or something.
It does look like a mountain range. And that's just fog rolling in.
Mhm.
Wow.
It is. So in this case, the fog comes in. What this does for character for the wine is, so you have these Pinot Noir grapes getting a lot of sun and warmth during the day, but then as the evening fog rolls in, very fast temperature drops.
Yeah, I did.
So the Pinot Noir grape has a very thin skin. So it cannot handle too much heat. It needs to be cooled off. So they've got the breezes during the day just coming over, which even though it's getting a ton of sun, keep it from getting up into the very high, it's not reaching 100 degrees. The Pinot Noir grape can't handle that. And then it cools down very quickly in the evening to give character to the grapes. So, and it has minimal rain during the growing season, which allows them to control. They get a lot of their moisture just deposited from the fog on these. So they try to keep it very dry. And you can see here, like this soil, you can see how dry and porous
sandy.
that sandy that soil is. And let me see here. Yep. Let me jump back out.
No. Stop share.
Thank you. Oh, I didn't see that. Thanks. All right. So that's the area, that's the region and where we are drinking from. We can actually explore their Zin, their Petite Syrah, and their Cab some other time. They are all fantastic. The Gehricke line sells very well for a reason. They make exceptionally good wine. They actually, which is the Gehricke family bought they did start with buying their own vineyard in 1904, but have since then sold that off and turned that into becoming a negociant and just a winemaker. The 4th generation winemaker is named Auguste Sebastiani, and he is still the head of winemaking, but he's overseeing other winemakers. They actually have since created a brand called 3 Badge Enology, which owns multiple different winemaking brands. So this is a little bit more like a Californian version of Iguigal when we drank that Côte de Rhône, where they purchase their grapes, but they have long-standing arrangements with these people, and they've been buying them from these vineyards for multiple generations. And the name Gehricke, which is a little bit of an odd name, is actually the name of a road that, as the boys grew up, was this obscure, just unpaved road that they would play on because there was no traffic on it. And it went down to some of these great obscure vineyards that their grandfather knew and knew the owners of and used to buy the grapes from and that kind of a thing. So
I thought it was a family name and it looks German.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
right, yeah, and I'm pretty sure it is, but it is not their name. So there's Italians
Right. Well,
with a
that's what I was
German
thinking,
name,
yeah.
and it's America. It's America, everybody. So
I was like, Sebastiani is clearly Italian.
Right.
And then I was wondering how that had
Right.
to do with the Gehricke. So I'm glad
Sure.
you explained that.
well,
That's
and
cool.
and the thing is, we talk about family ownership and family
Mhm.
winemaking, which is really really neat. But at the same time, the history of this family is really no less interesting, and it doesn't derail me from thinking that the wine wouldn't be as good. I mean,
Right.
they've got 4 generations of winemaking going on. They just decided they weren't farmers; they were winemakers. But they know which farmers to work with in order to get the best grapes.
Sure.
And clearly they do. I think it's a delicious wine.
Mhm.
I mean, we talked about, kind of tore it apart, talked about what it was like, but I think to me, the bottom line is I love this wine. I think it's absolutely delicious. I like where it hits, where you've got some robust fruit, but it still has balance. It still has character.
Mhm. What do
You
you
may
guys
have
think?
said this and I missed it, but I've been to a Sebastiani winery before. Are they related?
I don't know. I tried to look that up today and I couldn't find anything. One would think it's potentially true, but at the same time, they're the original Sebastiani that started this group funded the purchase of their first winery by working in a quarry. So it could be completely separate. I mean, there were obviously a lot of people emigrating into the country at that time. So I couldn't, it's a good question, Brenda. I couldn't find out whether it was or not. They, what do we have here?
Rachel and David asked a question. So we're looking at the chat box.
Yeah,
Is
we're
there
looking.
any separation between those who grow their own grapes and produce their own wine and those who buy from vintners and make the product, but don't grow the grapes?
Yes. So in those circumstances, you would see something called estate grown.
Okay.
So when you own your own location and you're using your own wine, your own grapes, that would be estate grapes.
Do they mark that designation on the bottle? when it's
Yes,
an
they
estate?
do.
Okay.
Because it's not required, but you can't say it unless it's true. That much is required. And people that do grow their own do find that that a lot of people put in a little extra value in the wine. When you control it, soup to nuts, you control it from root to wine. People do like that. I agree. It doesn't, I like to point out, it's not the end all be all of anything, but I agree. It's kind of fun. I think we can all immediately emotionally cling on to that idea of, oh yeah, they grow the grapes and then they make it all themselves. It's really neat. But honestly, a lot of people purchase beautiful grapes and make wonderful wine out there in the world.
Well, I think it was a good point of they decided they weren't farmers. They were winemakers. And if it wasn't their passion that's a whole different level of, tending to the grapes and the plants and all of that the whole way, as taking something that, okay, I trust these growers, let me just get those and then make the best product I can make. So it is two completely different aspects of winemaking, even though a lot of them grow and make.
Right. Oh, sure. Well, actually, what's an interesting point too is, do you guys remember when we drank the Cab Franc from Chinon in France? All right. So that Chinon, that family is the opposite. That family is more into farming than they are into winemaking. Now they made a beautiful
they sell
wine.
a lot of their grapes.
They used to sell all their grapes, and they've only just recently begun to produce their own label. And they use only natural winemaking techniques. So they actually take it, they press it, and it just becomes what it's going to be. And their whole point is the grapes are going to express themselves.
Is that the one that you showed us, the press?
No, that was in,
Okay.
where was that?
There's
been so many.
They
That one
tend to
might have been
run together for
Greece.
me a little bit. Okay.
I think that one might have been Greece. No, it was Australia. That was the Basket Press.
Okay.
That was the Basket Press
right.
with the Tate wines. Anyway, so like I said, when we were looking in Chinon, that family loves their farming and they want a complete control over the grapes. And then they go with a much more, what they call it, kind of a natural winemaking process. They only use the yeast that's on the skins. They press, they take good care of it, they let it go, and it becomes what it will be. But their whole point is nurturing it on the inside. When you're also a winemaker and you simply, you work with the material you have, there's really no overall decision in the market or in any kind of assessment where you say one is better than the other.
Okay. But the people that the Chinon, is that how you say it?
Chinon.
Chinon. So their wines could be different every single year.
Yes.
Because they're just allowing it to be, it is what it is.
Exactly. They would have potentially much more variation from vintage to vintage.
And then the Gehricke is looking for consistency then.
Yeah,
through
they will
years?
work on that.
Okay.
Yeah. There's would be much closer to that consistency
Okay.
because they've got multiple locations to grab from, which is actually something similar to the Astrolabe down in New Zealand. They have lots of different people. So if you have one of because they have multiple suppliers, you have somebody had a great year and somebody didn't have a great year, you might only buy 5% of your, from there. Or anyway.
So they know if it's a great year or not by just eating the grape.
True.
They can just tell by
Yep.
eating the grape.
They eat the grapes, and then
That's-
they taste it.
That's
and they're
amazing to
imagining
be
what it's
able,
going to become.
right, to be, because it's not fermented, obviously. So it
Mhm.
is truly like just imagining this is what it will become.
It is that next level of understanding what the flavors are going to become and what's happening with it, which
It really tastes good to me.
I would love to do that. I think that would be a lot of fun. It must happen at some point.
I can't remember if we asked this a couple weeks ago, but I know we asked amongst ourselves. If you go to these wineries, can you taste the grapes as well as when you do the tastings?
Some, but it's not consistent.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it depends. And it's going to depend on the time of year you visit. I mean, if you're not there when it's close to harvest, then there's nothing to taste. That's why when we all take our trip,
When Julie plans our trip for us.
it needs to be during the harvest. So we're talking September, early October. So right now.
So we're going during our busy season at Tipple.
Well, it's just the beginning of the busy season. If we went in, mid-November on, then that would be brutal.
You'll need it. You'll need the rejuvenation before busy season really kicks in.
That's true. Okay, let's jump back over. We are time to go look at our ratings. Okay, so this guy's been rated 90 to 91 points, outstanding wine of superior character and style. We talked about this where that realistically means just a wine. I mean, effectively, I guess. Effectively, they give that to a good, solid, excellently made wine that you're happy to drink. Even though technically that should be more like an 85 or something like that. But
So wait, so not, yeah. So 91 is just a good solid wine.
I mean, effectively, the way they're using it,
Yeah.
that's one of the things with the wine score explanations. People say that
True.
it creates this bump up. I mean, though I will say this is a great bottle of wine. I
Mhm.
really, really enjoy this bottle of wine. I think it's excellent.
Very good.
So I mean, I would, with the effective use of the 90, 91 points, I would be all about that. Yeah. I'd call it a good 90, 91.
I would too.
You would too? Okay, and
Oh,
we
yeah.
can't hold
I
on.
would.
Yep. No chicken fat.
Exactly.
First thing he said. I'm not a big fan of Pinot Noirs. He likes them a lot more. I like the beefy ones, but I love this one.
Yeah, you get up to Domaine Serene and
I
Red Valley. Wow, you
Oh.
a Pinot, man. This can't be a Pinot, but this is
But I don't know, the flavor of this one's great.
it is.
Yes.
Yeah, I like this one a lot too, and I agree. I'm not usually a Pinot Noir fan. I keep trying.
Yeah, me too.
Because I keep feeling like I'm missing something, and every time just like I don't know what it is. This one I like. It does remind me a little bit of like a sort of red, like a California red blend. Like, I thought it came across really like velvety. One of the things I actually thought about when I was, a little bit later was I was like, it actually, when Jeff, you mentioned the barrels, it actually kind of reminds me almost of like bourbon barrels in that way of like, okay, it's not gonna be this overly oaky thing all the time, but you are gonna get that spice and something like that. And I was like, oh yeah, it does actually kind of remind me of that type of thing a little bit.
I could go with like a rye whiskey spice quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not that it's boozy in any way like that.
Right.
But yeah, but you're right. Rye whiskey gets that kind of nice, baking spicy quality as well.
Yeah.
And it's got significant spice to it. I like that. I mean, like it's especially for a Pinot, big fruit, big spice, without the vanilla. I think that's one of the things that makes California Pinots so much fun is they are a bigger version. It's like, it's almost like the American version of IPA beer versus the traditional British IPA. They're both hoppy beers, but then you've got the American version, which is bigger. That's kind of what Americans do. But what I like about this one, though, even though it is bigger in its expression, it still has a lot of anchor points that are traditionally Pinot. It doesn't lose what it is. There is, honestly, right now, the most popular Pinot Noir that is not, they call it, the most popular high-end Pinot Noir in the country right now, in my opinion, does not drink like a Pinot Noir at all. It drinks like a red blend completely.
Oh, yeah.
It's blended with Petit Syrah or something like it. They won't say what it is, and people love it. And I'm not saying it's not delicious. It is a very delicious red blend, but they,
But it's not a Pinot.
they meet the California law requirement that calls it a Pinot, and it is the most popular one in the country because people like red blends.
Yeah,
Mm,
sure.
mm.
Do you
I think the
wanna-
IPA call is really good too, because I was mentioning Robin. I was like, I think about that with some beer sometime. Where I'm like, this is really good, but man, do I struggle to call this like, whatever they're striving for, or like, you were some bold stuff. I was like, yeah, like East Coast versus West Coast IPAs hit very similar notes of very hoppy, very always, very bitter
Right.
and stuff like that. But one
Right.
can be really sweet and one can be really like not.
Right. Yeah, you're right. There can be a ton of variation, but you're right. It hits the theme.
Right.
You're in the theme. And so, so this guy hits kind of right in that. I think it's, I think what was my I called it one of the, a classy version. It is, it's kind of like a classy version in my mind, which might be a little bit of a judgmental term, but, not judgmental, but when you're making a judgment call. Anyway, subjective term. But that is I do like California Pinot Noir a lot. And I like French Pinot Noir a lot, but sometimes you want something a little friendlier and bigger. And I think this one's an excellent version of it. So and that's one of the reasons, that's why I chose it. I thought it was, I think it's a combination of fun and good quality wine. And that tends to be,
I'm sorry, Jeff. I feel like the first glass, like when I first opened it, like I really got like the big grape, like fresh grape smell, and the first glass was very grapey, and then like Chris said, it kind of like mellowed out. It's very velvety after that. Like the first glass was very fresh, and afterwards it's still good, but it mellowed out very fast for me. Is that like normal for this kind of wine, or am I crazy, or what?
well, if mellowing out, I would say getting into more of a balance where you're getting more flavors and more subtle flavors instead of just the fruit jumping out and controlling the experience, then I could totally get behind that. Because I agree that Pinot Noir is supposed to share the stage between fruit and the other aspects. It's one of the best grapes at doing that, and that's why people love it. Because when you're drinking Pinot, it's not just all about the fruit. It's it's fruit, it's spices, it's terroir, it's earth. It's some of them have some smoke. Well, if you get into Burgundy in France, you're going to have some that taste a little bit like you poured some grape juice on a horse's rump and licked it. You can get pretty horsey on some of those guys.
Yeah, I'm as I'm tasting more and more wine, so I'm liking the horse barn more actually, which is a weird thing. Because at first I was like, oh.
The first time you have it, you think, oh dear
I was like,
Lord.
what is this? But
Right, and then
Yeah.
you're right, you get that, you can see, we're like, oh, that's what you were doing.
Yeah.
And especially with food. My gosh, when you have that with food.
Sure.
It's like the first time I ever had a sour beer. All right, so this is a long time ago.
I love sour beers.
Right. This was a traditional European sour, no fruit.
Okay.
We're talking classically
I
soured
like
Belgian.
fruity sour beers.
Right, that's kind of a new sour.
Okay.
Not to diminish it, but it is.
Okay.
So the first one I ever had, I was not really into the craft beer scene. This was a long time ago, but I was just dipping my toe and I knew I liked amber ales. So I went there and I saw a Flanders Red on the menu. I'm thinking red, amber, got to be the same thing. It is not. So they bring me this beer, and I'm there with some really heavy craft beer drinkers, and they look at me and they're like, "Oh, you got the Flanders Red, awesome choice." And I'm thinking, why is it in this tulip glass? I don't understand what's going on. And understand, I didn't even know sour beer existed. So I sipped this thing and like, what has happened? What is going on? This is disgusting. And here I am forcing a grin on my face. Yes, I sure picked the right one. Splash. And now here I am, years later, it's like when you get a little time and you learn about it a bit more and why it is and what it should be, which I think applies to Pinot. Pinot's such an interesting grape because it can be so many different flavors. You learn and you flow with what you prefer. So that's one of my favorite things about Pinot. Honestly, when we bought the store, before I had my sommelier training and all that kind of thing, Pinot was my least favorite grape. Yeah, by far, like not even close. I didn't think I even liked Pinots.
Mine is Chardonnay.
And I had never had any good Pinots, and
That's the trouble, yeah.
But
So what
remember, we had the Chablis that you liked.
Yes. No, well,
And-
that's true. Okay.
And then with
It's still
food-
my least favorite, though.
Yeah, mine
Wait,
too.
all right. Let's
So next week is the Chardonnay, I'm guessing, after I said that.
so let's go to let's see. All right. So are they saying this or me?
They're
Yeah.
seeing it.
Okay. So here we are. So we're kind of right in the middle on the growing regions here this week. So right in the sweet spot. Obviously California, amazing for wine grape growing. I think we all know this. There's no real lesson to be learned there. And so next week. How I can't say anything.
I can hold on.
Okay.
There you go.
Here we go. We're drinking a Chardonnay, everybody.
After I said that, I didn't say I didn't like it. I said it was my least favorite.
Well,
But it's from Chile.
It's Chilean.
Be a better one, yeah.
This
Yeah,
is an
love Chilean
exceptional-
I've actually had this Chardonnay.
It's exceptionally good.
Yeah,
it is
it
so
is,
good.
actually.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Is it a buttery Chardonnay or no?
No,
Yeah, see, I'm not into buttery.
it's not that
Chardonnays,
it's
like-
without.
I'm not either.
It does have barrel, but it's super cool growth. And so this will be the first one I think that we're drinking that is consistently out of that 91 point range all the way up to 93. And it's not just that it had one vintage, it's 93, 92, 93, 92.
Right.
This is an exceptionally good Chardonnay.
I'm just laughing because it's table sucking.
Oh, oops. Can we change it right here? No.
No,
Yeah.
you're not in editing right now.
James Suckling. We had a
Now we
busy
know how you
store
really
today. Chicken, duck, swordfish, salmon, bacon wrapped scallops. All of these things would be outstanding with it. It's an exceptional wine. It really is.
That looks like something you should learn to make, bacon wrapped scallops.
I think you're
bet
right.
you would really be really good at that.
I'm with you on that.
When are we all having dinner at your house for those bacon wrapped scallops?
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
let me get the recipe down and then we'll work it out.
Yeah. The $20 a pound ones, the bigger ones.
Well,
Mhm.
let's sign off real quick and then we can keep talking
Wait,
outside.
wait,
of
wait.
the-
Does anybody have anything to say? Because people have been asking excellent
Yeah.
questions
Yeah.
after we've stopped the recording.
I know, that's true. That's a very good point. Thank you.
I know this has
Oh.
been asked before, but I feel like it can't get asked too much. Can you explain again what terroir is?
All right, so
You go ahead. I don't
All
know
right,
what that
so-
was.
terroir. So terroir is the French term that doesn't mean only the earth. It's actually terroir is the French term for all the factors, environmental factors that are going to affect the flavor of the grape in the wine that you end up drinking. So terroir is a combination of what is the soil like? What's the drainage like? How much rain is there? What's the temperature? Is there fog? What is the surrounding herbacity? So, like for example, Australia has a lot of eucalyptus trees and that does affect the grapes. So terroir is this encompassing term to talk about all of the environmental factors surrounding the grapes.
But if you say you're tasting the terroir,
Mhm.
I always thought it meant earthiness.
It often comes through with earthiness like that. To me, that is, well, it is very commonly what you're getting. So if you're getting a little bit of that minerality, so whether it's when we drank Chablis Chardonnay, right? There was that limestone kind of
Yes.
nice thing.
So that's
but-
part of the terroir.
That's part of the
Even though
terroir.
we say minerality very often. for
Exactly.
that.
More appropriately, I would call each one by its
It's actual.
delineated, the minerality versus, because as, for example, this guy with the additional fruitiness compared to, say, the French expression Burgundian Pinot Noir, the warmth and the sun exposure is going to be as much of the terroir that affects it as, as the earth.
So do they have, is there a term that refers to like the earthy, like if you're tasting black soil or if you're tasting like mushroomy, or is that just terroir?
That's just, it's included in terroir and they'll cover it. But then you just discuss, hey, well, we have this kind of soil. It has this kind of an effect on the thing. For example, Chinon, going back to the Chinon in France, it had a lot of clay in the soil and they had that red clay quality. And I think we all picked up on that a little bit.
And that's just under the umbrella of terroir as well. What are you looking at?
Yeah, I was looking at some of the things.
Okay.
Yeah,
Trying to catch up on the notes.
change the color of the wine, but there in Germany, we are with the Rieslings, the river undulates as it flows. And so you get vineyards that are not too far apart. They get more sun than others. Some little areas have a lot of slate, Blauschiffer, they call it. And you go down the river and it's clay and it changes completely. And you go to one of these tastings where the people have little plots in all these places and they just blow you away with telling you all the facts about what's based on where these grapes are growing. And you're right there. You don't have to go miles to other areas to see that just because of the lay of the land.
Oh, right. Yeah, you're right, Jerry.
So
It's,
cool.
each thing's because, for example, like that very windy river, running through there, it creates microclimates, and microclimates change what you're going to create.
All right there. Like
and you can do it within one side of the hill and the other side of the hill.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you're right, Kristen Robin, terroir is Terroir. It's a French word. So. Yep. All right. Well, any other really good questions? I know you guys are going to think of them as soon as we stop recording.
Yeah, because I asked this last week and y'all got mad at me because you got done with the recording. The glasses.
Yes.
The glasses, pairing the glass for the wine or the beer. You said that is important.
It actually does. So it will not make a night and day difference. Like I wouldn't say, how dare you use a white wine glass for a red wine? I would never go that far. But they are designed to enhance the best aspects of each style of wine. The Riedel is really, really good at this. I mean, they're not the only ones that are good at this, but I tend to use Riedel glasses. And the Extremis provides a lot of, for example, this design point is to give a lot of surface area to provide aromas and yet encapsulate them here. Whereas the white is more open, provides a lot of, but it's a matter of collecting the aromas a little bit differently. So it does affect it. So it is not a night and day thing. It is a very, very subtle thing. So I would never say don't worry overly about which glass you're drinking beer or wine out of.
So if
but
you
they are
have
great
it
enhancements.
in a Yeti, for example.
Well, look, I will say this.
That does make a difference to me.
That does make a difference. Drinking it out of a neutral glass or plastic actually is one of the most important things I've learned. Somebody did give me a Yeti type glass that was plastic. It was metal on the inside. And I can't remember why this happened, but at some point I put wine in it. And that was a horrific experience.
Really?
Because the metal reacted with the wine and it was disgusting. It was awful. And in fact, that metal reacts with many of the beers. I don't drink beer out of it anymore either.
Really?
The intention, which was lovely, and I didn't know ahead of time, it's stainless steel.
Right. You'd think it wouldn't affect it at all. And since they age it in stainless sometimes,
sure, yeah.
you think it'd be,
but
you can
that
stick in
stainless reacted and it just became this metallic.
You're just tasting metal?
I was tasting pennies.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was not fun. Yeah.
I had the same experience, but I've had the same experience drinking water out of the tumblers with the where it makes it metallic. So there's
really
stainless steel.
That's a little worrisome.
To be clear, all stainless steel is not created equal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of it must leach into it.
Yeah, or at least have the ability to kind of affect it, you know, whether even it's, you know,
I
just.
will say this much. I bought a Brewmate stainless steel cup.
Mhm.
The taste out of it is much better than a Yeti.
Ah,
Oh, well, there you go.
The Yeti, I didn't like it so much, but out of the Brewmate, they got it right. I mean, that's why they specifically make it for that. So
Yeah, you're right. So I would say of the things I personally have experienced, material is number one, Paul. After that, the difference in shape is secondary, but it is a nice enhancement. So when they do make, you know, a white wine versus a red wine glass, there's going to be but it is subtle. It is nice, but it's subtle.
so
The Americans pay more attention to that than Europeans, I was told. I don't know if that's true, but a lot of places you go in, especially in the countryside, they don't even have similar, period. You get your glass of wine and it's in the glass.
Oh, right.
like a water glass?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
could
I've
be a
been
big one,
places
could be a
like that.
liquid, whatever grandma has in the back of the hotel dining.
Isn't that all related to aeration?
Aeration is definitely part of it. Absolutely. You've got some more surface area. This wine is going to aerate faster. Whereas if I had the same red wine in a champagne flute, for example,
Sure, the surface area.
yeah, the surface area is much smaller, and so you're going to aerate slower. It's definitely there's all those factors that come in there together. So it's not nothing, but it is usually subtle.
Thank you for asking that, Paul,
Yeah.
because I knew there was something that you asked last week and I couldn't remember what it was.
Go back to that.
You're very welcome. Yes. Thank you. but just to make sure that I'm clear, it's more about focusing the aromas.
It is usually because you're on your way in. So it'd be the two things. So the two heavy hitters would be the aromas. So you get the nice olfactory on the way in, and then exposing air to the wine when it wants to open up faster. So
That makes sense.
Thank you.
PV equals.
So any other questions, comments?
and by the way, after 40 minutes, I'm getting smokiness. All right, let's jump in.
Yeah, as usual, we opened ours probably around 7.
Yeah.
And we probably didn't start drinking it until close to 7:20, but I opened it around 7. So around when we kicked off, and I was like, I'm definitely getting that peatiness, that smokiness.
Yeah.
We probably were like 45 minutes into that glass being open.
Yeah, and we didn't open ours until 7:35,
right before,
7:40.
yeah.
Right.
Because we open it when we pour it. That's really
Right.
Yeah.
To talk about it. But no, totally get all of those comments you said, Chris. Yep.
Jeff likes to taste every nuance of evolution as he goes through it. So yeah.
Yeah, no, seriously, that peatiness is totally there, and it's a bit of that Islay. It's so delicious. Yeah, it's fantastic. Yep, absolutely. Good call, Chris. You're just ahead of me on that.
Ready to toast?
Yep. All right. Toast. Thank you all for joining us.
Oh,
Okay, all right.
Thank you for coming out.
Bye.